Have you made it to the end of this video series? Well, thanks so much. If you've been following us step by step, our last video, we were at the Tell of Derby. And now I'd like to share with you a little bit about the final city where Paul and Barnabas sailed out of. That is the biblical city of Attalia, or present day Antalya, Turkey. That's the city I'm driving through right here. So thanks so much for watching the amateur videos that my wife and I have made by rental car as we went through each of the cities of Apostle Paul's first missionary journey in Asia Minor. My name is Mike Manna, and I'm so thankful that my wife Judy took a lot of these videos and we could share them with you, a little bit of what we learned as we went through these cities. So after Derby, Paul and Barnabas went back to Lystra, through this step that I'm driving through right now in central Turkey, then on to Pamphylia and Antioch, encouraging the disciples in each of those cities that he had made. And then he went through the mountains, these mountains here, down south and into the Mediterranean Sea coast, where he eventually came to the harbor city of Attalia. And I'd like to share what we learned while we were there. On this last episode, I'm excited to share with you a little bit of what happened when we went to Antalya. I'm going to go back and forth with these two names because we have an ancient biblical name, Attalia, and the current name, Antalya. So thank you for joining us on episode 6 of this. I just wanted to share with you who I am as well, remind you I am Dr. Mike Manna. I work for Youth for Christ International as their global training director. And I love my job. I get to travel a little bit when there's not a pandemic going on, as well as just simply encourage and do a little bit of what Apostle Paul did in this final part of his journey, and that is to strengthen the disciples that were already made. And so I love working for the Youth for Christ International. We have over 100 countries. To learn more about that, just go to the website at yfci.org and learn more about the ministry and the organization that I love working with. Also, if you'd like to, go ahead and subscribe now to my little new YouTube channel. This has been an experiment, doing these 6 videos, and I don't know if we'll be doing more in the future, but subscribe and then hit that little bell, and it'll sure let you know when we do another video. Hopefully more on the Apostle Paul's life, and also especially about some of the work that he did as a missionary and what I get to do also as a missionary in modern 21st century. So anyway, take a look at Derby and on this map, and you'll get a little picture of where we left on our last video. And Apostle Paul, as you see on this, he returned back to Lystra, Iconium, Pamphylia and Antioch, then went down south through the mountains to Attalia, it says in Acts chapter 14. And so we had to choose whether we would go through this route again as well. It would have been a lot longer to go back from. In fact, you see there 8 hours if we had actually traveled the same route as Paul and Barnabas did. But we decided to sort of go a little bit of kitty corner and just went straight on to Attalia through the mountains on modern highways that are present today. Now, Antalya today doesn't look anything like it did back then, because today it's a city of 1 million plus people. It's a center of tourism, major international airport. But back in Paul's day, it looked more like this. Love this artist's rendering. It's very historically accurate of what Attalia would have looked like during the time of the Apostle Paul in 1st century. In fact, at one point, this harbor would have held 200 ships. And so it was quite a very special port for Turkey, and also getting into certain areas like in Perga, which was next door to Attalia at that time. So join us on our trip as we return back. This is the final episode. We really appreciate your support as we of watching this as well. If you want to know more again about our personal ministry, you can go also to our website at youthdiscipler.com, and be sure to share these videos with your small groups or anyone else that you'd like to do that. Thanks so much. Enjoy as we look a little bit at biblical Attalia. We've now come to Antalya. This would have been biblical Attalia if you're reading in the book of Acts. And this is the place where Paul and Barnabas finished their first missionary journey. And I'm standing right now in front of Hadrian's Gate. Hadrian's Gate would not have been here during the time of Paul and Barnabas. It was built after them, probably about 80 years after they visited the city and actually left it. The book of Acts doesn't talk about very much about what they did here. In fact, it doesn't say anything. But there is a possible chance that, again, that they were sharing the message that they came to bring through the whole missionary journey, the message of Jesus being the Messiah. But also, on top of that, I think this is a good example of understanding the imperial cult that they were coming against everywhere that they went to. This was actually built for the sake of actually honoring the Emperor Hadrian in 130 AD, to honor his entry into the city. Can you imagine? They built this gate in their wall to honor the emperor as they came in. So they did venerate him. They often considered the emperor as a deity. And so this is the Rome that Paul and Barnabas were confronting with their new message. And I cannot help but think about the humility of their group of people that they were developing, and this family, in contrast to the Roman culture. We are here in Antalya harbor, which of course was biblical Attalia, and this is the end of Paul's first missionary journey. We have this recorded in the scripture as the following. In verse 24 of Acts 14, and then they passed through Pisidia and came to Pamphylia, this area, and when they had spoken the word in Perga, remember it's not hard for here, they went down to Attalia, and from there they sailed to Antioch, where they had been commended to the grace of God for the work that they had fulfilled. They had completed their journey, and this is where it all ends. And I can think of this neat that we get to see the ships coming in, the ships leaving. There's one going out right now, full of tourists today. Not exactly the same kind of ships that Paul and Barnabas were coming in and out of. But what is amazing here is that the location is the same. We have old walls here that are on the harbor, and I can picture them leaving. And I'm not sure how they felt. I hope that they felt this amazing feeling of being part of God's work in this area. And what is so incredible is that this first missionary journey is the one that we see the gospel expanding beyond what the ethnicity. More than that, actually, it's something that's going to go out to the whole world from here. Paul and Barnabas were leaving this farmer and going on back to Antioch where they were sent out. But when they were leaving here, they had established churches. They had established disciples. And this is where that we see the gospel leaving this harbor and going out to the whole world from here. And let's go back and think about this time that we've had together on this trip. Thanks for joining us on it. I kind of think about some of the things that really made a difference in my life personally. One thing is that I didn't know about this geography. Wow! All the mountains up and down on this journey. I didn't recognize the beauty of the Mediterranean coast that we would see as well. And I didn't sense what Paul was going into. I mean, there was huge Roman cities with established imperial cult and belief system that he was bringing in a new understanding to them of the truth of God, what it meant to them. So that he sent his Messiah through the Jewish population, but now it was for the whole world. Wow, what Paul and Barnabas felt like, the sufferings, the trials, and the issues along the way, that they left this harbor. I hope they had a sense of God's work. It's all for His glory. The disciples that would be established at that point and would continue to the point that you and I today would have this truth. I want to read this last verses here. When they arrived and gathered the church together back in Antioch, they declared all that God had done with them and how He had opened a door of faith to the Gentiles. And they remained no little time with the disciples, for there was still lots to do. Thanks for joining us on this journey. I hope you enjoyed coming along with us on this trip. Thanks so much.